Welcome to the Emerson Group Wealth Call for November 2025. My name is Nick Emerson, and I am the owner and operator of the Emerson Group, where we specialize in rental property ownership representation with an emphasis on the tax-deferred reinvestment strategy known as a 1031 exchange. And today I'm excited. We're going to be talking about recent client studies. And what I mean by that is recent clients we've helped that have conducted a 1031 exchange to defer taxes and really reposition what they have to better serve them now and for the future. So I'm excited that we're not going to be focusing on Excel sheets, investment metrics, or really comparing pro and con from a cash flow or appreciation. This is really about clients who took action for rental properties they had no problem with, yet because it made more sense for them and what they were trying to accomplish now and in the bigger picture. So to quickly review what we're going over, we're going to give you a quick refresher of the 1031 exchange basics. We're going to go through the motivations, right? What are reasons why people conduct a tax-deferred reinvestment strategy? We're going to go through our client studies. We're going to go through study one, trophy short-term rental to personal perks plus profit. Then we're going to cover the relocation of a rental from San Jose to San Diego. And lastly, we'll end with my personal exchange from North Carolina to San Diego. And at the end, we'll go through what were some of the lessons learned and kind of the aha moments from this presentation. So getting into the 1031 exchange refresher, right? What is a 1031 exchange? According to the IRS, and this is directly off the IRS's website, it is defined as when you exchange real property used for business or held as an investment solely for other business or investment property that is the same type or like kind. In other words, meaning when you swap your position that's investment or business related into another position that is also investment or business related. Meaning I could sell a property that I was renting to my own business as a real estate firm, and I could then buy a duplex because that's going from a business to investment use, both within the same category per the IRS guidelines. Next, we're gonna go through, well, what's a like kind? Commonly, misconception would be it has to be detached for detached or condo for condo. And great news, that's not the case. Like kind refers more to the function of the asset. Again, as defined by the IRS, properties of like kind, if they're the same nature or character, even if they differ in grade or quality. So I put some notes here at the bottom just reminding you that like kind really is rental property for rental property, or business use for business use, or it could be business use to rental or rental to business use. Either way, as long as your position is held as an investment or business use asset. So now we've kind of captured what qualifies and what you have the opportunity to exchange into. Let's quickly review what you can exchange into. As you can see on this list here, it's rather extensive. However, most people are typically going to be exchanging into other detached homes, townhouses, multifamily or apartment buildings. Not very common we're seeing people using the cell tower or the cemetery plot option. But really the purpose of this slide is to help you understand that there is a robust amount of options available for you, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, where you're at, and what you want it to look, feel, and operate like based on your needs. Next, we're gonna go into the exchange motivators. What motivates people to utilize the tax-deferred strategy using a 1031 exchange? As you can see, there's many reasons or motivations why, and fortunately, oftentimes, several boxes are included within each exchange, meaning not only are they accomplishing maybe improving their cash flow or increasing their depreciation schedule rather. Maybe it also might have a component where they're planning within their estate to eventually have their kids inherit each asset in a different area. So I really want you to understand how there's many different reasons why people might use an exchange, and oftentimes it might not be because why you think. So to start, cash flow, of course. A good example of one we did was selling a condo and then reinvesting or re-leveraging the equity in that property to then buy multiple properties. So from that, not only are they increasing their cash flow, but they're typically also increasing their equity position or wealth over time. Next, depreciation. If you've owned your rental property for greater than 27 and a half years, well, you don't have any more depreciation. So there's no benefit or value being realized for your tax deductions. So some people might be looking solely at doing this to utilize an advanced depreciation strategy, or because it's a culmination of they don't have this, and when you add that plus cash flow conversion, it makes a heck of a lot of sense. Next, appreciation. Well, an example of this would be maybe moving a property from one geographic location in the United States to another location. Meaning if you're in a location where it's more based on cash flow, you're probably not seeing big volatility in values up or down. So California naturally is the opposite. Lower cash flow, but typically higher appreciation. So someone might be looking to utilize generating more cash flow when they're looking for retirement strategies for income. Whereas someone who's looking for maybe appreciation is more of a long-term play where they don't need the cash flow because they're in their income earning years and they're looking for more of a stable write-off to accumulate wealth over a longer period of time. Conversion. This is a big one because there's a huge opportunity in this space for people to utilize their rental property and convert it into their eventual primary, or the opposite, converting their primary into a rental, which then allows them to take advantage of both 205 owner-occupant exclusion for $250 if single or $500 for married, and all the tax benefits and deferring state and federal for the purpose of converting your property one way or another. Consolidate or diversify. Now, the most common example of this is taking multiple assets, maybe in different locations or in a larger area, and consolidating that into one asset. So that might look like you have 3 detached properties and you're tired of dealing with multiple property managers, all 3 roofs to replace, windows, heating, cooling, plumbing, and you'd rather consolidate into an apartment building so that everything's under one roof and there's more of economies of scale, simplicity, and operating efficiency. Reduce management burdens. Another one of this would be a DST, right? So taking maybe your active position in detached rental properties and converting it into a passive fund or fractional ownership where you're receiving a check each month, but you're not dealing with property managers, maintenance, and everything that comes with the landlord responsibility. Estate planning. We're helping a lot of people to, well, bless their family and kids now rather than later so that they can actually realize and enjoy the benefit of seeing their family, friends, or whoever it is they want to bless, enjoy what they have created or worked for over so many years rather than waiting until they're no longer on the earth and they don't even get to see it. Planning out your estate, how you want to kind of help yourself, maybe help your kids, your family, and in return, that's going to allow you to have a better ownership structure and less noise when you're looking for things to be quiet, easy, and relaxing. Lastly, use in profession. This is one where, if depending on the profession you're in, you could have a doctor's office, a real estate office, attorney's office, tax accounting, retail, any of those, right? That could qualify and does operate within the exchange space as a business use or investment use. So how could you maybe utilize that, whether it's selling your current property that you're retiring from your business from, or maybe it's taking one of your rentals and buying a property that you can utilize for your business. As you can see, there's a lot of different opportunities and reasons why people choose to conduct a 1031 exchange. And my goal for this is really to help open up maybe some ideas or considerations that maybe you weren't aware of, or that maybe you'd like to explore a little bit further to see how that could serve you, your family, and really your long-term needs. Now that we've covered some of the 1031 exchange fundamentals, let's jump into our client case studies. Client case study number 1, trophy rental to personal perks plus profit. Check out my one-on-one conversation with Suzanne to hear it from her perspective about her exchange story. Okay, so I'm here with Suzanne, a good past client of mine. We've worked together many times, and I'm excited to go through this story through Suzanne's perspective and the real life story instead of simply educating you on how an exchange works and the timelines and the requirements. This might be more impactful for you. And what I want to take away is that a lot of these decisions aren't made through Excel sheets or specifically chasing money or returns or profits. A lot of times, because they make sense and serve the person's situation better. So, with that being said, Suzanne, we'll let you kick it off from here, just kind of giving the audience an idea of where were you, what was going on, what'd you have, and we'll take it from there.
Right. Okay. So
we're hanging out in Dana Point.
Yeah. So what happened just before Dana Point that drove me to Dana Point was that my father had passed away. And it at that point became kind of an emotional decision for me to leave Scottsdale, Arizona, where my dad and I had both, worked in real estate and rentals specifically. And so, my heart just took me to Dana Point. I hung out in Laguna Beach when I was young.
Not a bad place for your heart to take you. So initially, we were talking about buying a property that was for you.
It was, absolutely.
And somehow we're going to end up with this turning into an exchange. Okay?
It did. And really what happened is that I bought this house thinking, this will solve all of my heartache and whatnot. And it wasn't a good fit.
Right.
6 months down the road, I'm walking around the block, literally four houses down the block and around the corner, and I saw a house, a fixer-upper, that spoke to me. And I went, wow.
So you wanted to sign up for more work.
More work.
But you had a vision, right?
I had a vision. In order to make that vision come true, I had to sell the house that I had just bought 6 months prior.
So you had to make a tough decision that a lot of people would have a hard time making just by virtue of length of I've only owned it 6. I can't.
Yeah. Right. And so I said, okay, no, I'm going to do this. This fits me. This is what I was looking for that wasn't available. It's available now. Sold the house that I had bought this house. It was going to be my forever home. And then my son had some difficulties in Phoenix.
So it's going to be your forever home, and then a life showed up.
Yeah.
And said, no, that's not your plan right now, actually.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I wound up doing the short-term rental, which I had a comfort with. I'd done it before in Scottsdale. And
this was in 2016?
It had just turned 17.
So this is when it was just starting to become a buzzword and become popular, and a lot of people were wanting to start to consider getting into that space.
Even though I had been doing it since the year 2000 is when I started.
Yeah, so slightly ahead of the curve.
Yeah, a little bit.
Waiting for the party to show up.
Exactly.
Okay. So you pivoted, right? It was a forever home, and then somewhere along that process, you realized this might not function exactly that way.
At least for that time.
Okay.
At least just for that specific time where I needed to go back and help my son out. But still, my plan was to go back and for that to be my forever home. So it was an interim solution for me. And then, lo and behold, 2 years later, it was so successful. I think Dana Point just happened to be a great place to do a rental, specifically the short-term furnished rental.
And it provided you that option that so many people call in and ask us about, which is how do I find something where I can enjoy it, but still make financial sense of it.
Exactly.
That actually served you really well in that time period.
For sure. And then just after that, after my son, things started working out for him, and I left Phoenix more permanently, deciding that California was going to be my forever home regardless of where my house was, right?
And this is kind of along the times of where we met.
Exactly.
And Suzanne loved her Dana Point vacation rental.
I did.
I think that's one thing I appreciate about this story is that at no point was I ever coming from a place of talking about Dana Point, thinking about Dana Point, other than thinking, man, it's a great asset, and that's really serving you well, and you're never going to sell that.
I felt like I was never going to sell it. And even when it became so popular that I decided to pivot and make it more of a permanent rental,
Right.
Short-term rental, so I could still go back and forth. I purchased a place, a few places in San Diego, and then if we go forward a little bit here, in 2024, after all the success with Dana Point and going back and forth and enjoying the relationship that I had with that property.
You had everything dialed in just the way you wanted. You had a great book of recurring clients. You had great cash flow. Everything you want on paper.
Yes.
And there was no problem. I think that's part of the story here that's important that I want to convey is that Suzanne didn't have a problem.
Right. Exactly.
She had a great asset that actually just allowed you an opportunity for other considerations because of
Options.
What you needed.
Yeah, opportunities. And then in 2024, I wound up getting very sick and had a little time to think about things and realize, slow down, realize that I wanted my son to be in California. And,
well, then you just buy my house, right?
Right. Not. Unfortunately, that was, however.
You mean you're like most other people that can't afford to keep their kids in San Diego?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But then I started thinking outside my box. And I thought, okay, how can I afford for him to come here and still maintain my lifestyle in what I'm used to doing? And it just made sense to start looking at a multifamily scenario.
Multifamily scenario, and specifically in San Diego where you were already at.
Yeah. Much as I liked Dana Point, part of the problem with Dana Point is that public image of short-term rentals was getting.
Well, there's some bills that were starting to be put on the ballot.
Yes.
And there was some opposition to.
Opposition.
So there was a little bit of tension there, and just not wanting to have to deal with that type of dialogue or what might come from it down the road.
Correct. That
was a small catalyst that helped propel a little bit of fuel
toward making the ultimate decision to sell Dana Point. And then, of course, I remembered that you were involved with the 1031 exchange, and it kind of sparked my interest. And I thought, maybe that would be the way to go if I purchase another rental property, like for like. Could we do this? And at the time, I was living in my condo, which I had purchased through you. But yeah, it just made sense to try to do something along that line. And I happened to be riding my Vespa one day through, the neighborhood.
We're going to get you a picture with Suzanne and the Vespa.
Oh, okay. We'll do that. And drove up right by this little duplex house, charming house on the corner. And it spoke to me. That's the way I,
things clicked, right? An opportunity presented itself. And then the pre-work of how you'd mentally kind of thought about your options. It all started to kind of come together.
Exactly.
And the realization this could actually serve many purposes.
And so ultimately, my goal still is for my son to be able to move into the smaller part of the duplex, down the road. And right now, I'm building up the reserves and renting out, that portion. So that is working out. And
so you went from something that you could enjoy a little bit, get some cash flow from, to then something that was a similar format, right? Something that you could enjoy yourself in a more permanent manner.
Yes.
Get recurring income with rooms being rented, and then have a rental downstairs that could be a midterm, a short term, a long term, or
Any of the above.
as needed for your son when he does eventually move out to San Diego.
And then also hanging on to my condo that I have here as another either short term or midterm rental furnished. So that's basically what I'm doing now.
Basically, she's doing what the government's giving her as far as the rules of a 1031 exchange and using that to help solve her own needs, right? And planning ahead so that you can create the best version, right, of what you have within your real estate assets.
Within that and looking toward the future where I want to be in 10, 15, 20 years from now.
So, having time to have slowed down and thought about what was important to you, but I think also taking action, right? You could have done nothing.
No, yes.
And we wouldn't actually be sitting in this living room because this is the living room for the property that you purchased.
Exactly. I could have done nothing. I would have been perfectly happy with Dana Point.
Nothing would have happened adversely had you done nothing.
Exactly. However, now that I find myself in a situation where I'm a bit older and I have to make decisions on long-term care scenario, and I want my son here, this just made more sense. And I'm really happy I did it.
So what would you say, I guess, would be some advice that you'd give to other people that might be in some situation where they have rental property and maybe they're entering a new season of life and where they're at, what they need, but they're uncertain about what to do or they don't know if they should take action?
I think you have to look at your own personal circumstances. It's not all like you said about a spreadsheet. Sometimes it's more about what your personal needs are. Maybe what worked yesterday doesn't work for you as well today. Maybe it still works, but maybe down the road it's going to work better if you change things up a little bit. And, just thinking outside of your own little bubble. And also, I think ultimately my advice would be to follow your gut and follow your heart.
Yeah. Well, you took kind of stock and inventory of what you had, right? What you wanted.
Yes.
So I think one of the lessons too is understanding what you have and how is it serving you, but also what alternative options do you have, and how could those influence or serve you in your life, and maybe not just from a landlord renter standpoint, but more about a more globally viewpoint for yourself, for your family. And so thank you very much for sharing that with us, Suzanne. We trust our audience will appreciate seeing a real story from start to finish, and that it wasn't some sophisticated investment decision. It was more a culmination of making small decisions over the course of time that allows you a platform to then change something, right? That was still working for you, but to amplify what you wanted more for the next 10 years.
Right. Exactly.
That's awesome.
That's it.
Love it. Thanks, Suzanne.
Okay, so to recap, Suzanne sold her detached home in Dana Point and purchased a 2-unit property here in the Middletown Bankers Hill area of San Diego. And in doing so, she afforded herself the opportunity to increase the reliability of income by virtue of having 2 doors instead of 1, have more channels for rental options, meaning short-term, mid-term, or long-term, and most importantly, the option for her son to move in down the road if or when appropriate. Great job, Suzanne. Client study number 2, repositioning rental from San Jose to San Diego. So Michael and Debbie owned a detached home in the San Jose area, and they originally purchased it 15 years ago with the intention of eventually moving into it. So parents were located in the area. They thought, hey, let's buy a rental. Eventually we can use that as an asset we can move into. Unfortunately, things changed and both their parents passed throughout that course of time, and there was naturally no longer a motivation to retain a property in the area. With that being said, for a quick snapshot of the property, everything was in a good place, generally speaking, meaning they had a very stable tenant for 15 years, so they never had to turn the property over during their ownership. They were cash flow positive, and it was in a great location for them to take advantage for a future option. Now, the downside was that, well, at this point, they no longer had a reason or motivation to relocate to that area. And additionally, the property was coming up on a lot of deferred maintenance. So kitchens, bathrooms needed to be updated, flooring, windows, roof. And naturally, it's no fun spending a bunch of money on a property if you're not going to keep it in some cases. So where this transitioned to was Debbie reaching out to me in the summer of 2023 to just ask questions and get more familiar with the 1031 exchange or tax deferred reinvestment options and how and what she could do with that property. So as we can see, really talking through them and discovering what was important to them, they were motivated to, again, relocate the asset through an exchange to a location that either a family member lived in, such as San Diego, or even back home where they're at in South Carolina, so that it was easier for them to maintain. Of equal importance was the ease of renting the property, having strong rental demand, and ultimately also having an option to move into the property down the road if they chose to be closer to some of their kids here in the San Diego market. So through that process, as you can see, we were able to help refer them an agent to sell in the San Jose area and very quickly identify and purchase a 2-on-1 property here in the La Mesa area. So great location. We've got a downtown area that's been revamped. It's got really strong rental demand. And through that process, we were able to really accomplish many of their needs within that time period. And on top of that, well, improve their situation. Now, what do I mean by improve their situation? Well, by virtue of having completed the exchange, they relocated a property in close proximity to family. They captured a property that was easy to rent in a really strong demand area that could either pick up tenants in that area or from the San Diego State location. They also had the benefit of getting 2 doors for 1. So we went from our detached property to a 2-on-1 here in La Mesa. And as you can see, located on Nebo Drive, front house, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, back house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And fortunately for them, the back house was brand new. So brand new ADU build, had never been lived in, and the property is being sold actually due to a default. So again, they improved their position geographically, financially, and from an asset perspective. On top of that, they were able to add to their depreciation schedule because they're purchasing up, as well as make sure they didn't own a property in a location that no longer made sense to them. So great job, Debbie and Michael. We're happy to report that our management company through Leisure Life had an easy transition, and we've had solid tenants since April of last year, and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future with no issues and peace of mind. Client study number 3, from North Carolina cash flow to Claremont equity. Client, Nick Emerson. Well, that's me. And this was my property, long-term detached rental in Charlotte, North Carolina. Coincidentally, it's a property I purchased from a client locally here. And so I owned it for about 4 years. Upon purchasing it, I renovated it, refinanced it, rented it out. And through that process, I had tenants in there for approximately 3 years. So at this point in time, I had tenants getting ready to move out. I was in a position where I was making about $200 to $250 in positive cash flow per month. And on top of that, the opportunity cost really of what do I have? What can I do with it? How much more value can I realize? And is there other opportunities available to me in the marketplace?
more specifically, locally here in San Diego. So after going through those options, I took action because my main motivation here was to relocate an asset from out of area, so it's local in my own backyard, take an asset that was fully realized and add value and reposition it into a new asset that had opportunity to repair, add square footage, add units, really all facets of adding value and forcing equity as part of the wealth game. So as looking at all those options, I made a decision to sell the property. As you'll see, the exchange period was from December through April. So I chose to sell the property in about November, prepared it, put it on the market December. I believe we closed in late February, actually. And so I took that position, and with my motivations to find a better asset for better value, I purchased a detached home here in Claremont on Onondaga, which is just south of Claremont Square. Now, what this exchange did for me, right, is allow me an opportunity to utilize my skills being as a real estate broker, having construction experience, and helping many of you make and build wealth yourself, to do it myself locally instead of an area that I could not do it in Charlotte. So for this position, we sold for $585 and we purchased for $830. The property we have now, we're actually, if you haven't been paying attention to our YouTube story of Onondaga, we're in the thick of things, if you will, and we are finishing up repairs here in the next month or so. So I'll have invested money into the property to add more value to it. Through that, I'll have realized $200,000 in more equity. So essentially I traded my $220 a month cash flow, right? I sacrificed that for the year, about $2,400 of profit, and of course my principal buy down, for $200,000 in additional value realized because of square footage and renovations completed. So as you can see, for me personally, I didn't have a problem with my Charlotte property, but I did see that I had an opportunity and I considered it. And after going through the options, it was a no-brainer. And well, I'm happy to report I will be better off today than I was the day prior and before owning Charlotte. And what this comes down to is understanding what you have. And for me, it was an asset that I could improve. And because of that, I will then be taking you guys on our next journey after renovating it to add additional unit and showcase how much value has been realized because of this change, how much cash flow we're now realizing after the second unit, and work backwards to show why it was a smart decision to take a change rather than doing nothing. Looking at all these case studies, what are the key takeaways that we can learn from these lessons and these stories? Well, most commonly a 1031 exchange is not used to make decisions on Excel sheets or return on investment metrics, but most commonly for people that are seeking simplicity, convenience, or reevaluating what their current needs and wants are relative to what they might have been 20 years ago. Secondly, you don't have to have a problem to have a compelling reason to evaluate your exchange opportunity or options. Third, the reinvestment purchase enabled all of our clients to be better off in their new position than had they done nothing. So because action was taken, a plan was executed, and a new position was formed, they're better off because of it, both personally and financially. And lastly, partnering with a professional and having a plan, well, that equates to 100% exchange success rate. So make sure that if you're partnering with the right people, you'll have the plan and you might not have a problem, but you'll have more profit or equity or value that better serves you. Now, as we conclude the call here, if you're curious about what it is you might be able to do as far as your opportunity, that's great because we offer a no obligation asset protection plan so we can review what you have, how it's producing, and then secondly, put together an exploratory strategy call so that we can understand what options do you have, what do you have, and what can you do to validate whether or not taking an exchange action makes sense for you. So thanks for joining our call. I trust you've gotten some great takeaways and ahas from our client studies. Stay tuned for our next call in December. But in the meantime, stay wealthy and have a great weekend ahead.